Good morning again, and we appreciate your patience. We have had some audio difficulty previously, and so for the sake of clarity and accuracy, we're just going to go back through the very beginning of our meeting. Today is November the 4th of 2020, and this is the UTA Board of Trustees meeting. I'm joined by my colleague, Beth Holbrook. We also welcome Jeff Acerson, who was recently appointed by the governor and is pending his confirmation hearing on Friday and a vote by the state Senate, a potential vote by the state Senate on the 18th. And we certainly look forward to working with Mr. Acerson and welcome him to UTA. To begin, we'll ask Jana Osler if she'll read the electronic meetings determination statement for this live streamed meeting. Good morning, Jana.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you again for round two. This is the electronic board meeting determination, which allows us to do these meetings remotely, signed by Carlton Christensen. It reads, consistent with provisions of the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act, specifically Utah Code 52-4-207, Section 4, and acting in my capacity as the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the Utah Transit Authority, I hereby make the following written determinations in support of my decision to hold and convene electronic meetings of the UTA Board without a physical anchor location. Conducting board and board committee meetings with an anchor location that is physically accessible for members of the public to attend in person presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. This determination is based upon the following facts, among others. The COVID-19 pandemic is ongoing and significant, and continued community person-to-person virus transmission continues to occur in the state of Utah. And federal, state, and local health authorities have adopted guidelines for the general public and businesses which encourage institutions and individuals to take precautions, including limiting in-person interactions and recommending increased virtual interactions. This written determination takes effect on October 7th, 2020, and is effective until midnight on November 6th, 2020, no more than 30 days after the effective date of this declaration, and may be reissued by future written determinations of the Chair of the Board at that or any other appropriate time. Dated this 30th day of September, 2020, Carlton J. Christensen.
Thank you, Jana. We would also make note that public comment was received previously, has been distributed to the board, and will be part of our minutes. And certainly, we welcome any comment on these or any other items through our website or other means of submitting comments to the board, and welcome those. Before we begin, we'd like to turn to our Safety First Minute, and with that, we welcome Sheldon Shaw. Good morning, Sheldon.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, trustees. As always, appreciate the opportunity. Today, I wanted to highlight one of our great safety partners, and it's a safety partner for all the railroads, which is Operation Lifesaver. Operation Lifesaver is a group of volunteers who do railroad safety presentations and safety fairs. They've been really curtailed because of COVID, but we're doing the best we can with social media and with PSAs. How successful has our group been? Well, we started in 1972 in the state of Idaho. In that year, there were roughly 12,000 grade crossing incidents across the United States. According to the FRA, by 2017, that number was down to 2,100 incidents at railroad crossings. That represents 83% decline. And so for today's safety message, I just wanted to say thank you for Operation Lifesaver and all the presenters and volunteers that are part of that organization. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Sheldon, and thanks to you and your staff and others who participate in sharing that message in our local elementary schools. We have on our consent agenda approval of a number of minutes, including recent board meetings and as well as budget work sessions that were held previously. With that, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion. However, I did want to add that there was one minor word change on the October 8th minutes. At the end, it has I send Kent Millington instead of I seconded. So just wanted to point that out. Otherwise, I would be happy to make a motion, and I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda with that one change.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Beth. With that, we'll turn to our agency report, and we welcome our Executive Director, Carolyn Goodall. Good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning, Chair and Trustee Holbrook. Just a few items today. The first thing I want to do is just talk a little bit about our ski bus service and outreach efforts for the 2020-2021 ski season. So I've invited Andrea Packer, Lauren Simpson, and James Larson to join me today to share some information on that. They have a brief presentation about what we'll be doing. And then I have two small items after that. So I'm going to turn it over to those three. And I'm not sure who's starting out, whether it's Andrea or Lauren. So thank you.
Well, good morning. This is Lauren. I'll kick us off. Today, we will present to you and give an overview of what the upcoming ski service will look like during the COVID pandemic. And we'll also share with you how we plan to engage with and reach out to our customers so that they will have the best experience possible. Next slide. Our goals for this coming ski season for service are listed here. And of course, our primary goal, above and beyond all else, is the safety of our riders and our operators. In order to accomplish that during COVID, we will need to do things a little bit differently than we have in the past. Andrea and I will describe those adjustments and the strategies to accomplish these goals. We, of course, are committed to follow COVID guidelines. And it is our goal to help reduce wait times while also managing passenger loads. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. We will have tools to help riders plan ahead so that they can have the best experience possible and feel confident that our service is safe. Those are our goals. Next. In order to achieve these goals that I've just talked about, we will be running full ski service this year to each of the 7 resorts in our coverage area. As you can see here in Weber County, we will be providing 2 ski routes, Powder Mountain and 1 to Snow Basin. Similar frequency as we have in the past. Next. And from Davis County, we will provide an additional route to Snow Basin. So there will be two routes going to Snow Basin. Next slide. As you may remember, during the 2018 to 2019 ski season, we increased ski service in Salt Lake County to the highest levels in well over a decade. This year, we will plan once again to provide that same high level of service. There will be 3 routes to the 4 resorts in the Cottonwood Canyons. These will provide all-day service and 15-minute frequency during the peaks. Next. In Utah County, we will have a route to Sundance as we have in the past, also with similar service levels. Next slide. With safety being our primary goal, this high level of service will be one of our important strategies to help manage our passenger loads. This photo shows a load of approximately 20 people on one of our ski buses. It's our desire this season, given the COVID circumstances, to keep our loads no greater than this as much as possible. Now, that will be a challenge because loads can be much greater at times during typical ski seasons. So in addition to providing high levels of service that I've described to you, Andrea will share a few more strategies that we will employ to help us manage loads, to keep the customer safe, help customers plan ahead, and maintain customer confidence that our service is safe. So Andrea, if you want to take it from there.
Yes, thank you, Lauren, and thank you, trustees and Carolyn. If you go to the next slide, please. Reinforcing what Lauren said about our goals, obviously safety is our priority as we continue with the COVID situation going into the ski season. So we want customers to have a positive experience but to remember that we are prioritizing their safety. Some of the ways that we will do this are some measures that customers will see out in the system. There are some things that they will see that are a little bit different that I'll describe in a moment, that summarize what UTA is doing to help keep them safe and ensure that they can get to the resorts and back down from the resort safely. We'll also provide some tips about what riders can do and how they can help us with some of these measures. And I'll talk about some of those ideas. An example is we'll be providing like off-peak times where they might be able to catch the ski bus. And then options to plan ahead. I'll talk about this a little bit more, but our goal is really, as much as possible, to have people know before they go what we're doing with ski service and what their options are and what they can do to hopefully minimize any delays that they may experience. What you see on the right is an infographic from RTC. This is kind of an example of some of the communication tools that are in development. And we will be, short of an initial blog and some social media that we will start today, some other activities will start in the next week or two. Next slide, please. So again, as Lauren said, we want to reassure people that we are doing things safely, being mindful of COVID guidelines and recommendations. So we will reinforce our messaging that we are continuing to disinfect and clean our vehicles daily. Masks will be provided and required on the ski bus, both for riders and operators this season. And we are providing hand sanitizer on all of the ski buses as well. One new thing that we are setting up is lines at key stops. So we have identified some key stops in all 3 service areas, and we will set up, please go back to that slide, please, for a moment. I'll talk about that in a moment. That where we will set up like kind of candlestick type cones like you see, although they won't be construction orange, they will be UTA blue, so that they will be socially distanced lines, and so they will actually have tape that says please maintain social distancing. We're also going to be flexible. I think one of the hallmarks of our successes as we've responded to COVID so far is we have been very flexible in monitoring passenger and ridership loads. And if we exceeded some of our benchmarks, we have added service or done other things to respond. So as Lauren said, we will be monitoring passenger loads very carefully. We will be limiting loads where necessary, and we want to be, upfront with our customers about that. We do have some extra ski buses that we will deploy throughout the business units if we see peak periods or times where we need to send out an extra bus to help riders get up the canyon, or oftentimes at the end of the day to make sure people can get down the canyon. And then, like I mentioned, our information will recommend and provide information about off-peak days and times in each of the service units, as well as the top park and ride lots where they could go to help minimize their delays. Next slide, please. Additional things that we will see in the system is connecting train signs. Or train station signs. There will be a lot of signage out in the system. So when people do get there, they do have the information that they need. I already mentioned the queue lines. We will have signage at the beginning of the queue lines and at the end of the queue lines, advising people about the process and to socially distance in the line. At other bus stops, because as I mentioned, the queue lines will be set up at approximately 20 of our key stations. At the other stations, we will have signage as well. We are working with the business units that if we feel that a bus has met its safe capacity, the header on the front of the bus will change to bus is full. We're still planning to stop at the stops but advise customers that the bus is full and to wait for the next fun. So next slide, please. So those are some, I just talked about some of the things you'll see in the system. A lot of the efforts that we are focusing on to communicate with riders, and as I said, to help them know before they go. And again, credit to James Larson on my team, who is also on the line. He's been the lead on this and done the bulk of the heavy lifting on this. So we do have a pretty comprehensive blog that we will post shortly after this meeting to start getting the message out, working with customer service and our social media team on some of the changes that they will see this upcoming ski season. We are investing in some paid communication tactics, primarily geo-targeted web and online, as well as mobile advertising. And those are in development. And as I mentioned, will launch in the next week or two. We'll be very proactive on social media throughout the ski season. Just one quick point with the paid media is a lot of our communications will be rolling communications as the Cottonwood Canyon Resorts open on November 29th, but the Ogden business unit and the Sundance Resorts open a few weeks later. So we're timing our communications with the openings of the resorts, which take place over a period of several weeks. So I did mention we'll be very active throughout on social media. Some of the tools that Lauren mentioned that we have not really had before, but that we're excited about, is our service alerts that we launched earlier this summer, where riders can go up and sign up to receive either by text or email alerts about a particular route. And so we will be using that as one communication method. Also, our partnership with the Transit app. They are tremendous partners, and they are already queued up to really help us communicate with riders ahead of time. And recently, they launched a crowdsourcing feature in the app. And so riders can communicate with each other that this bus is full, this bus is not full. And so we're really going to be focusing on our partnership with the Transit app to help people know what is happening in real time. Another tactic we're doing is the Snow Go teams. We've talked about Go teams in the past, where maybe we have a major rail incident or disruption and we send employees out to help assist customers. And so we're looking at plans like that. And lastly, a lot of email blasts. We're fortunate that the ski resorts are working very closely with us, and they have direct access to their employees who have passes and to their season ticket holders who have passes, which is a notable portion of our typical ridership. And so they are queued up and ready to help us with these communications. Next slide, please. And I think it's the final slide. Yes, as I mentioned, we're working very, very closely with our partners to help get the message out. I already mentioned the ski resorts. We're working with the airport to share our blog or to share our social media posts and information for the tourist community. We've been in contact with the Convention and Visitor Bureaus and the chambers to help us, as well as the Hotel Association. And you can see some others listed there. Ski Utah has been a tremendous partner. They've actually, linked to our service planning or trip planning app in the past, as well as CWC. And so this is really a communication effort with all of our partners. So again, as best as possible, help people know before they go. But then when they do get there, we'll have the signage and other information in the system to help them get up the mountain as quickly as possible. So that's kind of an overview of our communications plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Beth, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to know if you could, I know that you are still coordinating all of the communication strategies, but I'm wondering if you can talk about a couple of things, and maybe this could be Carolyn or Andrea or Lauren, I don't know whom. Could you talk again about some of like maybe those filters in the ski buses and some of those things that are can be impactful? And then could you also talk about what can riders communicate and say, not just to others, but to UTA that the bus is full or there's other issues? How is that going to coordinate? Is that going to be similar, or what is that going to look like? Those are my two questions.
Lauren, do you want to take it to answer some of the questions regarding the filters? And then Andrea or Lauren, and Eddie's also on the line. Eddie Cummins, the COO, who can answer questions as well.
You bet. Let me respond to the filters, and then perhaps Andrea can respond better to the communication. UTA has been experimenting with changing of filters in order to manage the airflow, and we will be using the highest HEPA filter that is functionable, if that's a word, on our buses, but it's still allowing the air to move. We will also have a front window and rear window open to allow the air to cycle in and out of the bus as quickly as possible. So when it comes to the airflow, the air circulation, and the cleanliness of the air, we're doing those things and think that that will really help.
Thanks. I think it's always good to mention that again, because I really feel like that's a great, that's just good information for everyone to have. So thank you, Lauren.
And then Andrea, do you want to talk about communications? And I do think having the queue lines at these key spots will also have an operator sort of see how many people are in line, whether we have to sort of leave people, we need an extra bus. So there will be communications between the operator, the supervisors, and our center. So Andrea, do you want to talk a little bit about how we will deal with the communications aspect of it?
Sure, happy to. One, as I mentioned, we will really be pushing the tools that we now have in place, such as the service alerts and as well as the transit app. This is a new experience for us, admittedly, so we will kind of be learning as we go. But I think social media will be a very key tool, but it gives us the opportunity to direct people to those other services, which will be a little bit more responsive and accurate. Our social media team will be prepped and ready to go to help people. The challenge is ski service is kind of one of our services that is, affected by a lot of outside factors. If we have a big powder day, as we know, we can be very, very busy. And so it could be hard for the social media team to address how many people are on every single bus. But we are looking to be able to up the ante on those efforts. But it does give us the opportunity, again, to refer people, sign up for a service alert. If you're taking, Route X up to Snowbird, go to rideuta.com/sign up and sign up for your route. And we will be pushing those alerts out there. And also to push the transit app. Again, they will have very real-time information, and their crowdsourcing feature really can let people know in real time that a certain bus is already full and they probably need to wait for the next one. So we have a lot of tools in place. But I think, again, as I mentioned, one of the keys that we've had to our success so far is being flexible. So we're prepared to be flexible and adjust our tactics to inform our customers as best we can.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did have one other comment. Just I know that there are, and I recognize this is COVID, so take this with a COVID grain of salt, but I know that there are a lot of schools that have ski, not teams, but kids who sign up to go skiing. And do we have a communication for method for them as well? Or is that just from the ski resorts to us to get that contact?
That's a good question. I will follow up on the schools. As I mentioned, we do know the ski resorts have access to their employees and to their season ticket holders. But the schools is a good idea. So I'll follow up on that.
Hey, Andrea, can I chime in? Beth, we are reaching out to the ski resorts. They've got a ski school program that they do with each of the different elementary, junior high, and high school kids. So they said that's one of the other target markets that they'll actually be able to reach directly out to all the schools to educate them about all the changes that are going on.
Great. Thanks, James. I appreciate that. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you. And James is either in his basement or in the witness protection program. So, Lauren, I did have a question for you, and that was, I know we were taking a look at, is 20 the right number on the bus, and do we feel like 20 is still the right number on the bus?
Well, if you think about the picture that we showed, I don't know if we can go back to that slide that showed what 20 looks like. And in an effort to try to social distance while manage the loads and getting as many people up there as possible, 20 has been our target throughout the system. And we've been able to manage that pretty well on our regular routes. Ski service will be a greater challenge because of the fluctuation of ridership loads. But as you can see on this picture, this is about 20 people. And of course, they will be wearing masks, and there'll be hand sanitizer. We'll have the air flowing through there quickly to keep the air clean. But it's our goal for social distancing purposes, for the health and safety of our operators and the customers, to try to keep it no greater than this load. Now, granted, there may be times, if there are canyon closures, avalanches, and other things, where for the safety of our passengers, we may need to exceed that in order to get them out of the canyon rather than leaving them, you know, during those times. But it's still our goal and our target as an agency, try to keep our loads at 20 or less. And as been mentioned, we've got some extra buses that were due to be replaced this year. We're keeping them in service this year in order to deploy as needed where we have fluctuations in ridership that exceed this amount. And we'll monitor it every day and throughout the season adjust if we need to. But yeah, it's still our feeling that for the safety of everyone involved, this is the best target.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lauren. Any other questions on this item? Okay.
I did have one other question. I apologize. I'm
sure.
slow on my mute. I did have a question, and I just wanted to throw this out. This actually was from Mr. Acerson. He just texted me a quick question and asked if there's a reservation system. I don't believe that there is, but I was wondering if James maybe could talk about how ski school typically works. Maybe just a little bit of background if you have that. As I used to do it, and so I remember like you would just go up in the afternoons, but obviously that's not COVID. So just curious if you could answer that.
Yeah, talking to the 4 Cottonwood Canyons, they're all set up on reservation systems. Likewise, they've got all their parking lots socially distanced to help with this COVID situation. So basically with the ski school, they'll sign up for the reservations. They said that they're going to coordinate with us as best as possible with the reservation system to kind of give us an idea of when we see spikes in certain time periods versus other ones, which I think will definitely help out in our intelligence on when we think we're going to get peak loads versus non-peak loads. I don't know. I have not heard back from Powder Mountain, Snow Basin, or Sundance if they're going to have similar systems set up. Andre, do you happen to know if they're planning on doing reservation systems for Snow Basin or Powder Mountain?
Yes, they do have reservations in Weber and Davis County. Most of the students are bused to the resorts by the schools, so they don't frequently use our transportation to do their ski day as part of their school program. So it's not something that's been an issue for us in the past, and we don't think it will be an issue this year.
Now, we did consider, Beth, a reservation system for the buses as well. I just don't think we were ready to go. I know Lauren or Andre, you might be able to address that as well as to what our considerations were. It's not that we might not use it in the future, but for this year, it was going to be difficult to implement Lauren, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The reservation idea for our passengers for our ski buses is a really interesting idea, and we are interested in looking at that in the future. We considered it as we were approaching this ski season and didn't feel like we'd have enough time to do it successfully and not provide or not create a situation that's more confusing to our customers. Ski service is really unique. And because of powder days and canyon closures, avalanches, and so forth, we frequently have to adjust our service on the fly significantly. And that would then throw off what that reservation had said to the customer who thought that they would pick up a certain bus at a certain time, and that wouldn't be the case. And because of that, we thought, let's not throw that in the mix this year. But continue to look at that going forward in future years and see if we can work out the quirks and the bugs in that to have that be a viable part of our service.
Thank you. Thank you. That's good information. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we would just understand it was something that we did consider, like Lauren said. It would, if we couldn't implement it well, though, it could cause a lot more problems than probably it would solve at that time. But it's something that that would be useful to look at, particularly in this age of technology and where we're going. So that would be useful.
Any more information on this item? Not seeing any. I think you had a couple other items, Carolyn.
Yeah, the next one I want to talk about, or have Troy Bingham join us, is about the bond refunding. We went through the bond refunding last week, and so I'm going to have him talk about the results of that. So Troy?
Thank you, Carolyn, Board of Trustees. We took steps last week to set the bond pricing and to sell the bonds. The bonds that we were refunding were 2012 4% coupon bonds, and the rates that we were able to get in the market from 2033 to 2036 were about 2.3%, with the biggest chunk of the money being 61 million of the 74 million in 2039. And the rates on that were 2.975 or 2.965, so 2.97 overall. So the net present value savings of setting those prices is 9.3%, which is well above our 5% criteria. And we saved $6.8 million over the 19 years of the bonds. So the bonds are officially pledged right now. All of them have been sold. We had our first buyer from Utah buy $10 million of the 74 million. Green Dot Bank down in Utah County bought $10 million of our bonds, which is a good aspect to see that we have local buyers that are interested in what we're selling. So those pledges will be officially escrowed, and the money will be sent to UTA as of November 12th. So the bond will be officially closed as of November 12th, and we can move on. Any questions?
I just would add, having been part of the decision-making on the transaction, just want to thank Troy and Emily and others who worked, and staff who worked to get a lot of information to respond to those evaluating the bond proposal, and so in a fairly short time frame. So thanks for all your great work there, Troy.
Thanks.
And crew. All right. Carolyn, budget open house. Let's see, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. One last item was on the budget hearing and open house. You'll hear later today, when you have the resolution in front of you, we'll set the public hearing date, but just to give you a little bit of update, we are planning on sharing all of our upcoming community engagement opportunities on the budget, and the members of the community will be able to share their input during a virtual public house on Tuesday, November 10th, so next Tuesday at 6 p.m. The community members can register via Zoom by visiting rideuta.com/budget or watch live on our Facebook page during the event, or they can view the recording online after the event is over and send in comments as well. UTA's or questions. UTA is holding an in-person public hearing at UTA Frontline headquarters on Wednesday, November 11th in the evening. Information will be available beginning at 5:30 p.m. and the hearing will begin at 6 p.m. We are trying to limit the space for adequate physical distancing and face coverings are required, but we we do plan on being able to make sure that we're not turning anybody away. We'll work through that situation. And then the comment period will be held from November 11th through December 11th. And members of the community will have opportunity to review the budget online, in person, and review comments and feedback via email. And as soon as we'll probably put this online today for the 2021 budget and the engagement opportunities on our website. So just want to give you an update on that.
Great. Thanks, Carolyn, for your efforts there. Appreciate you and the rest of the staff getting us to this point. I assume that concludes your report.
Yes, that concludes my report.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, we'll go to a financial report, and we welcome Brett Armstrong as he gives us an update on our September 2020 information.
Good morning. Let's go to the next slide, please. Wanted to keep things at a somewhat high level due to the considerations of time. Wanted to talk about our overall results for the month of September, and also discuss sales tax results through the end of August. As we look at this schedule here, we can see that on the top line, sales tax revenue for the year is running slightly ahead of expectations. In the graph down below, we can see what's been happening with regard to sales taxes, which account for about 2/3 of UTA's operating revenues. What's been happening? I point out the red line on that graph down below. We can see that's a 6-month moving average growth rate for sales tax revenues for UTA, and we can see that line is sharply turned upwards for the last 6-month average, above that long-term average of 5%. And the reason I wanted to point that out is because during this time of pandemic, one would have expected us to have a reduction in sales tax revenues. But what's happened is the state of Utah has had a very vibrant economy during this time, which is sort of counterintuitive. And we've also had a lot of federal stimulus money that's come in, and that's helped drive our revenues. And so all in all, we're about where we thought we would be at this point in time of the year. One of the other things that come into play, I wanted to just give you a little bit of an economist view of things, is there's something called the Hatchman Index, which measures the diversity of an economy, or in this case, the diversity of a state's economy. This is an internationally recognized index, developed actually at the University of Utah. And Utah has the highest level of economic diversity of any state in the U.S. And the result of that is we've lost some economic growth in certain areas, as we're all aware of, but our resiliency is very high because of our diversity in terms of our economic growth. Going onwards, on the downside, we have seen fare revenues drop by about 37% year to date. And we sort of expect that because if you go down a little bit further on the schedule, you can see ridership, we're down about 43% for the year. As we've discussed before, that's they're mirroring each other, except our fare box revenues dropped a little bit less because we have a large number of people who get their passes through an employer who pays us a fixed amount. One other thing I wanted to point out is our diesel price has been trending lower. I just looked at it, and right now our current diesel price is about $1.45 a gallon as of the end of October, and which is about average for the year. And we budgeted for about $2.50 a gallon for 2020, so we have a little bit of a gain there. Any questions on this slide?
Brad, I did have one question, and I was just looking at fare revenue for the month versus on an average year, but our ridership has gone up a little bit over the last few months, and I wondered, I mean, it's only 4%, but I wondered if that had anything to do. I know the state of Utah renegotiated to a smaller contract, and there were maybe some others. I just wonder if that plays into it at all.
I think it does. I think what happens is our customers pay us. We have various customers who pay us a fixed amount per month or per year, And as those contracts come up for renewal, they're going to be adjusted, because if fewer of their people are writing, then of course they'll be paying a little bit less, as would be expected.
Thank you.
Brad, I had a question. Looking at the sales tax, our budget versus our actual is slightly lower, just 1.2%. Do we believe that that was because of the end of stimulus money? Was there some other component to that? I mean, I know that we are going back up in that kind of V shape. I was just curious as to why that occurred, what your thoughts are.
I think that may be coming. I'm not sure it's due to stimulus, because this is, as we report, with a little bit of a lag with regard to sales tax. That's what we got from the state. So that's for the end of August. I wouldn't have expected a decline in stimulus or unemployment benefits to impact the number quite yet. It could be. I think a part of it may be the way that we budgeted by month. It was off a bit. But again, the number, when it's a 1.2% variance, it's really, really small. So it's hard to tell, work out exactly the details, but it may be that stimulus thing as well.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide, please. One of the things that we wanted to point out is our passenger revenue, as we discussed before. You go on the far right and look at that red bar, it says 14.9. That's the revenue we've lost. So on the sales tax side, we're pretty much whole. On the fare box revenue, we're down about 14.9 million for the year versus budget. We budgeted 40.8. We came in at 25.9. Okay. Next slide. The reason we have this chart in here is this shows 12-month growth over the prior 12 months as of the end of August. And we can see that overall in our economy, we've had very vibrant growth in terms of sales tax revenue. Now, of course, a lot of this occurred prior to the pandemics coming on, but it's starting to fade off a little bit. But we're still seeing very strong growth in Utah County, Davis County, and Weber County, and which account for a large portion of our sales tax revenue growth. Next slide, please. And on the sales tax revenue, we've already covered this. We're on the far right side on a cumulative basis. We see that the green bar is $227 million, which is our actual revenue year to date. And then our budget was 225. So we're a couple $1 million above that, which is nice, given the current economic turmoil we face. Now, one of the questions we have, though, to Beth's point, which is what's going to happen in the future as stimulus fades away. It pretty much ended in September, end of September. And what is going to happen with regard to the economic turmoil we face, the spike in COVID, all those things still give us some pretty big unknowns. Next slide, please. And so one of the things that has really helped us and helped keep us whole has been our CARES funding amounts. Through September, if you look at that green bar on the far right, it's about $65 million we've received in CARES funding. And you compare that to our major area of loss, which is our fare box revenue of about $15 million. So we have about a $50 million difference between the two, which is going to be nice to have in hand as we look at not only the short term, what happens when the stimulus fades away and we have new spikes in COVID, but also are we facing a long-term period of economic turmoil? This will help give us a cushion. This is not only short-term, this is a long-term help from the CARES funding. Any questions? If not, next slide, please. And let's go to the next slide. We've talked about operating expenses a bit, and I just wanted to focus on one slide. So we're about $24 million below budget. And I wanted to point out and highlight some things. In terms of where we're below budget, I wanted to point out some things that emphasize the efforts we've made it as an agency. So we can say wages and benefits are about $4 million below budget for the year to date. And that's because of the efforts we've made in terms of managing our labor costs in the face of uncertainty, with our operating wages and benefits down by about $4 million. We've also looked at our services, and we've reduced services, expenditures on services as necessary, including things like some of our IT expenses. We've looked at our outsourced services that other folks provide, and those have been reduced. And of course, the big one has been fuel and utilities, because those are what drive our vehicles. And you can see our fuel is down about $7.5 million. Our utilities are down about $700,000. If you combine the two of them, they're about a third of our operating cost savings has been because we're running our vehicles less because of our trying to be agile and deal with the changes in demand for our services. We've also seen if we move down our parts and warranty costs, our parts cost really is down almost $2 million because as you run vehicles less, you use fewer parts. In our other area, we've had reduction in need for use of contingencies, lower insurance costs, and other items. Do you have any questions on these operating expense changes?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay, next slide. And overall, that's what's being reflected here by our chief areas, as we see that our operating expenses are down because of the items we've also discussed. So that's what I have to present today for our operating results and financial results for the month of September 2020.
Great. Thanks, Brad. And thanks to you and your team for tracking those and giving that update. With that, we'll go to our investment report for third quarter, and I know that Emily is not able to be with us, so I think we're turning to you, Troy.
Thank you, Chairman Christensen. The investment report, is there a next slide for this? So as you can see, we keep our money in 3 different pots. Zions Capital Advisor does our 1 to 3 year investments. This is typically how we back up our reserves. Zions Bank is our checking account, and we do overnight repos to a sweep account, but the interest rate is very small, you can see. And then PTIF is our largest investment. We have no other specialty investments outside of these 3 items currently for this investment report. You can see the overall rate. The investments have been hurt this year. We were typically in the 3% range before COVID. So we have definitely seen some downtrending in when it comes to investments. And we're currently getting 0.55 is the blended rate between all of these accounts. We compare this to our 3-month treasury bill, which is actually doing even worse. They're at 0.09 to 0.11. So we definitely are beating the 3-month treasury bill, which is good. But overall investments are definitely down for this quarter, and we just wanted to get this report out to you as required by board policy.
Troy, remind me, our bond payments that are due at the end of the year, those are really part of that PTIF number, correct? So,
correct. A lot of our bond payments are set aside monthly into a PTIF account.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Any questions, however, for Troy on this report? I guess this is the counter side to getting a good rate on our financing is that we don't get much interest either. So
correct. You have to give and take.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that report. With that, let's move forward to resolutions. And the first item before us is a resolution R 2020-11-01. It's approving the third amendment to the authority's 2020 budget. And with that, we'll turn to Mary Delaretto and Troy Bingham. Mary, good morning.
Good morning. So this resolution is to approve budget amendment number 3 to the authority's 2020 budget. We presented it last week. It only impacts the capital portion of the 2020 budget. There were 2 types of changes we were proposing. One was to reallocate some contingency funds to 4 different capital projects, and the other was to reduce a number of projects, the budgets for a number of projects that were supposed to be completed in 2020. We know they won't be, so we propose to move that budget that we're deducting it by to the 2021 capital budget, and we presented that last week as well. there was one question that came up last week about the reallocation of 300,000 in contingency budget to the Sharp Tintic project. And I think the concern was, would we have to transfer that right now to UDOT in a escrow fund or something like that? And we talked to UDOT about it, and we realized we have a federal aid agreement with them now that requires us to pay just as we're invoiced from them. And we will amend that federal aid agreement to include this 300,000 and keep that provision that we would just pay as we were invoiced, and we would not have to transfer the funds right away to them. So that, I think that was the only question we had last week to answer.
Great, thanks for that update. Any final questions for Mary?
No, but thank you for the update on that. I appreciate it.
I would entertain a motion then on this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the R 2020-11-01, the resolution approving the third amendment of the authority's 2020 budget.
I'll second that. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll next move to R 2020-11-02. This is a resolution modifying the authority's organizational structure. We talked a little bit about this during the tentative budget last week, but we'll turn to Carolyn Gannott and Kim Ulibarri.
Yeah, I just have a few comments. I'm going to turn it to Kim. We are looking at a modification. I've been here a little over a year now, and we're looking at some of the structure that I had and the focus of where we were going. And I would say the two major changes that I would like to see and that we're asking the board to approve in terms of the chief structure would be to redesignate the area that was engagement along with customer service, communications, marketing, innovative mobility, customer experience to planning and engagement, and pulling out the PR and marketing portion. And that would be working directly with me and with the board in terms of moving some of our communication strategies out, the, you know, how we would pursue those and have that. And because we really like to stand up the planning engagement, and I'll have Kim talk a little bit about that. And then the enterprise strategy, which really is about providing internally, working with our team and all our functional areas to be able to deliver on our initiatives, provide the technology solutions that we need, develop the policy, the enterprise risk management program, which is something the federal monitor would like to see us do, which is something I have a desire to do as well, coming from a background in that area. So I would like to continue to look at the enterprise strategy, really working internally. So I'm going to have Kim talk a little bit about the structure. She worked closely with me on this.
Thanks, Carolyn. I don't have too much more to add based on what Carolyn has talked about, but I think it's important to highlight that this org structure just, again, adopts the key chief offices of the agency to include our operations office, the new planning and engagement office, finance, the people office, the service development office, and the new enterprise strategy office. And again, both of these major changes around planning and engagement and enterprise strategy help elevate some of the key functions of the agency that Carolyn talked about that we're really trying to be done in other areas. And this structure will help elevate those and advance the service that we provide to our customers, our communities, and to our employees. So with that, I think we can take any questions.
I will say that, and prior to Kent's leaving, we had a number of discussions about this structure, and you know, certainly cost was one of that. I think with some empty positions, the cost of revising this structure is nominal in its nature, but I think the benefit addresses some aspects of the agency that really do need to be addressed, and I think will help us be more efficient in that regard. And so I appreciate the effort that's been made here. However, are there any questions? Beth, do you have anything? Any questions?
I didn't have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment about some of this organizational structure. I do like that we are looking at this from this holistic perspective, in addition to, I think the focus on the planning and engagement piece is really critical, and then the enterprise strategies as well. So I'm excited that we're going to be taking this deeper look into some of these areas and really kind of fine tuning what we're doing. So with that, I'd like to make a motion.
That would be in order.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the R 2020-11-02, the resolution modifying the authority's organizational structure as outlined by staff.
Second. I'll ask for a roll call.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks, Carolyn. I know that this will also be in our tentative budget, but I know there's some placement of individuals and things that you want to move forward on. So we wish you the best in this transition. So thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we will now go to the resolution ratifying the adoption of the tentative 2021 budget, which moves a budget forward for public comment and feedback as well from our local advisory council. With that, I'll turn back to Carolyn and Bill Green.
Good morning, Chair Christensen, Trustee Holbrook. For the record, Bill Green, CFO. We're seeking board approval of the 2021 tentative budget through resolution R 2020-11-03. As Carolyn mentioned in her update earlier, the resolution also provides notice of a public hearing on the tentative budget on November 11th here. And at 6 p.m. prior to the public hearing, we'll hold a public budget open house to allow the public to review and discuss the budget with staff. And then, as Carolyn mentioned earlier, in addition to that, we'll also be conducting a virtual open house on November 10th. And the tentative budget will be available for public review and comment through from November 11th through December 11th. And the public will be able to comment through email, online, or mail or phone. On November 18th, we are scheduled to meet with a local advisory council to provide them with an overview of the tentative budget and seek their input. And then the current schedule calls for us to be back before you on December 16th for final approval. Just to let you know that the tentative budget document in your packet has not changed from the information you were provided last week from Troy and Alicia. And then in summary, the budget includes $327 million in operating expenses, $256 million in capital investment to fund the provision of safe, convenient, and reliable service, and targets investment in our infrastructure. And we're leveraging federal and local contributions from our partners, making up nearly half of the capital program. And then we're going to utilize about $70 million received from the Federal Transit Administration each year. And I think Troy mentioned earlier, or Brad mentioned earlier, the CARES Act funding. I also need to explain a late change to exhibits A1 and A2. Last night, we discovered a technical error in the computation of the contribution of reserves and transfer to capital. So the revised exhibit that we provided now show the transfers to support the capital program and the incremental contribution to the required reserves. So that brings the total 2021 reserves from about 151 to 155 per the budget document. And then we also took the opportunity to introduce some consistency in the rounding of the revenues and expenditures in both of those displays. Are there any questions on the exhibit changes that we made?
Let me look to Beth. I don't have any, but Beth, do you have any?
Bill, I was just wondering if you could just say, I again just want to make sure I understood correctly. So just in Exhibit A, there were just some computational errors and then you adjusted that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Perfect. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, and I would note that we spent quite a bit of time reviewing this at the end of September, certainly last week. So this is not the first time we've been before the board. But with that, Beth, do you want to make a motion that includes the proposed amendments?
I will do that. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve R 2020-11-03 with the proposed amendments, the resolution ratifying the adoption of the tentative 2021 budget.
Second. I'll ask for a roll call on the resolution.
Trustee Holbrook,
Aye.
Chair Christensen.
Aye.
The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Bill, to you and your staff for getting it to this point. We'll next move to contracts, disbursements, and grants. And the first item before us is the external financial auditor with Crow LLP. And with that, we'll turn back to Troy Bingham.
Thank you, Chairman Christensen. This process started in December of 2019 when we went out for pre-proposal to the board, letting them know that our 5-year contract with our previous auditors, Keddington and Christensen, was coming to an end in the summer of 2020. So we went out for RFP in spring and received 5 proposals back, 3 state-run firms and 2 external to the state firms proposed on this offer. The evaluation committee in spring went through and evaluated all 5 proposals and recommended that we move forward with Crow LLP, which is a firm out of Indiana. Crow is known for having a majority of the 50 largest transit agencies as their audit clients. So they bring a wealth of transit knowledge to the table with this audit, including our NTD, our financial audit, our pension audit, and our joint insurance trust audit. We felt that they brought the most expertise to the table. We do appreciate all those that did put in recommendations with us, but ultimately we came to the decision of Crow LLP. We took that to the audit committee. We missed the one in August, so we made the one in October. The audit committee has recommended moving forward with Crow LLP, and now we bring it to the board for your final recommendation and proposal. So I turn this over.
Thank you, Troy. And I would just note that the audit committee, in addition to the board, includes the chair and the vice chair of our local advisory committee, or council as well. So any questions, however? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on this contract.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract with the external financial auditor Crow LLP as outlined by staff.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thanks, Troy. Our next item before us is a contract for light rail communication system replacement with Wugen IS America, Inc. And with that, we'll turn to Eddie Cummings and Kyle Stockley. Good morning, Eddie.
Good morning. This contract is with Wugen IS America Incorporated to replace the communication systems on our SD100 and SD160 light rail vehicles. Contract amount is $2,947,477, and we anticipate this project will take approximately 31 months to complete. Just a little background, UTA has 23 SD100 and 17 SD160 light rail vehicles in operations, and these vehicles are all approximately 20 years old. The current technology used on the communication systems has reached the end of its useful life and is now obsolete. Additionally, when the vehicles are in the downtown area, operators are required to make manual announcements, which has caused us some ADA issues in the downtown area. The new system will enable rail car to rail car communication, allowing for manual and automatic announcements throughout the train system-wide. The new system has a 20-year life expectancy and includes operators' communication control head, public address system with manual and automatic announcement capability, intercom system with cab-to-cab private communication and direct passenger communication, upgraded interior and exterior LED signs, and automated announcement system to control both audio and visual communication. The upgraded communication system will also give UTA the flexibility to mix our SD100 and SD160 and the S70 light rail vehicles, which is something that's not possible for us to do today operationally. Installation of the first 2 car sets of each vehicle type will be performed by the vendor to help us train our technicians, and then the remaining work will be performed by UTA staff. Are there any questions on this contract?
Eddie, I just had one question, and it sounds like it's past time to update this system. But how proprietary is the system in the sense that if you had some kind of add-on to it, do you have to buy it from Lugen, or does it have some flexibility? I don't know what it would be, best playlist or my playlist, or you decided you wanted to do something at Christmas time. I mean, how flexible is it, I guess, is the short question.
Yeah, Kyle, do you want to speak to that?
Absolutely. It's extremely flexible. So it gives us all the capabilities to put whatever announcements that we want to. And so special events, Christmas events, those kind of things. So we can do whatever we want to that way.
Okay.
I had a question, Kyle, or Eddie, I'm not sure. But some of the challenges I think that I've heard feedback from is that it was hard to understand what someone was saying, and the articulation was poor. Does that get addressed? I'm hoping it's a yes.
Yes, for sure. So the new system is a digital output system, and the old system is an analog system. So we get new speakers, new control systems. So it's going to definitely improve the communication to our customers.
Great, thank you.
This is a substantial upgrade to our current system.
Because sometimes those we're literally like garbled. So that's excellent. Thanks.
So whenever I ride the Boston T, I can't ever tell with the Boston accent what the operator's saying. Do we get a Boston accent with it as well? I never know when to get off, but I'm just teasing.
Sense.
All right, back to more seriousness. If there aren't any other questions, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the contract, the light rail communication system replacement with Wuxin IS America Incorporated as outlined.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, and good luck on that project. We're now to discussion items, and we have before us the Mid-Valley Connector Capital Project, along with its accompanying funding plan. I also know that we have with us representatives from Taylorsville City, including Senator Wayne Harper, Mayor Christy Overson, and as well as I remember seeing John Taylor in the mix, and there may be some others, but why don't we start with Mary first?
Good morning again. So per UTA Board Policy 3.3, all capital projects development plans for all new capital projects must be presented to the UTA Local Advisory Council for their review and approval. The plan needs to include the locally preferred alternative for the project's impacts and benefits, the project's cost, and a funding plan to pay for the project. So today we're presenting the proposed capital development project plan for the Mid-Valley Connector Capital Project. As you mentioned, we have representatives from Taylorsville City who may want to speak when I'm done with my presentation, and then I also have some of the technical team from the project who can help answer any questions. We are presenting it to you today prior to bringing it to the local advisory council on November 18th for their review and approval. So can I have the next slide, please? Next slide. Maybe? Oh, there we go. Okay, so here is you can see this is the locally preferred alternative, the route for the project. It's a 7-mile project that it's a bus rapid transit project that starts at the Mid-Valley tracks and Frontrunner Station. It goes through and stops at Salt Lake Community College, and then it continues on to the West Valley track station. 1.4 miles of the project will be dedicated bus lane. There's 14 stations, and the frequency will be between 10 and 15-minute frequencies throughout the day, depending on the operational cost, what we program for operational cost, and also depending on if it's 10 or 15-minute frequencies will affect the number of buses we need. And right now we're looking at boardings of estimated at 2,200 to 3,100 per day, depending on the frequency. Can I have the next slide, please? So a little bit about the project history. In 2008, a locally preferred alternative was selected by the project partners. It only included the section from the Murray Hub to the Salt Lake Community College, and a local environmental study report was completed in 2013 for that portion. At that time, it was determined that it was not a good fit for federal funding under the guidance at that time for small starts. And so Taylorsville City started piecing funding together for that. And then in 2017, the project was reconfigured to also include a connection out to the West Valley Hub. Another environmental document was completed at that time to include that section. And once that was completed, Taylorsville City applied for TTIF funds and received $22.8 million for the project. The locally preferred alternative was presented to the UTA Local Advisory Council, and it was adopted at that time, and we told them we would come back once a funding plan was identified, which is what we're going to be presenting today. The LPA was also adopted by the Taylorsville, Murray, and West Valley City. It was adopted by the UTA Board, and it is included in the West Front long-range plan. So now that we have sufficient local match and there's been a change in FTA guidance, the project seems more competitive for federal funds. And right now, no additional local funds have been available, so this seems like a good option to move forward with applying for federal funds. Can I have the next slide, please? So this shows our funding plan. Right now, it looks like the capital cost, the total cost for the project is $84.2 million. This includes the 3 hubs at Murray, Central, West Valley, and the Salt Lake Community College, the 1.4 miles of dedicated driveway, the buses we need for the project, and all the elements of the project. We've identified some local funds from Salt Lake County and from Murray and West Valley City. There's been in-kind right-of-way match from UDOT and Taylorsville City, and TTIF funds of 22.8 have been committed. We want to apply for $47 million in small starts funds from FTA, and we have already been allocated or awarded $2 million in STP funds through the West Front Regional Council. So we have, that would be about 56%, I believe, of federal funds, small starts funds that we would be applying for. Can I have the next slide, please? So this shows the project schedule. In order to be eligible for small starts funds, you need to be in project development. So we are requesting project development at this time through FTA. And because now, even though the environmental was done twice, because we are requesting federal funds, we have to go through the federal environmental process. We think it will be a relatively easy process because we've already done all the analysis. We just have to put it into the federal format and get FTA approval on that. And then once we are in project development, any more outlays of expenditures can be applied and counted as local match towards the project. So we want to do that as soon as we can. And then once the environmental document is done, we can start some early work like utility relocation. We'll finish our final design. And right away, we're going to start preparing the small starts application. And then also after environmental is done and design's far enough along, the final design's far enough along, we can start any additional right-of-way acquisition that has to happen. And then we could do some early construction activities, but we really can't do the main construction until we actually get the small starts grant, which we anticipate in early 2023. We can, however, once the environmental is done, start the procurement for the buses. Next slide, please. So here are the project partners that we've been working closely with all along. Taylorsville, Murray, and West Valley Cities, Wasatch Front Regional Council, Salt Lake Community College, and UTA have all been excellent partners on this. I'm going to now give Senator Harper an opportunity, or maybe the opportunity to speak about why this project is so important to them.
Great. Welcome, our friends from Taylorsville. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to present this to you. We know this has been something that you've reviewed for many years. Mary and her team and everybody for so many years have been great on this. You can tell that this is of high importance, where we've acquired, $6.8 million from Salt Lake County funds, $22.8 million from TTIF. We've had another $6 million from UDOT years ago. City funds are in a couple millions. And there's other money that's come through. You can tell everyone is committed to this, and we appreciate everybody going through and pushing this through. We want to have this done. We'd like to start construction next year, but I think there's been some wise counsel from Carolyn and Mary and others that we can probably do a better and complete project and something that's more vibrant if we go through and federalize this program. And so we're just here in support of it, and thank you for that. And I think Mayor Overson has some comments now.
Hi, Mayor Overson here. Absolutely, I support this project. As we learned from the project history, we've been working on this for a long time. 2008 till now, we've talked about it, planned on it, found funding from here and there. We appreciate all those who are looking at this. We're working together with Murray, West Valley. What a great connection this will be. Connecting communities, connecting the valley, enhancing the east-west transportation. We're in strong support of this, really excited, and would love to see this pushed through.
Mayor, thank you. Tell me, and I know Taylorsville has done a lot of the heavy lifting on this front end of this project, so thanks for having that vision. Do you see development opportunities in Taylorsville? I'm sure there will be in West Valley and even maybe Murray, but do you see some development opportunities for transit-oriented development along the corridor there in Taylorsville?
Absolutely. If you look at this route, 4700 from Murray and down 47th, connecting to the college and on into West Valley, if you look at that 4700 corridor, there is a lot of opportunity. There's currently a golf course. There's Sorensen Research and Development, that research park. There's a lot of opportunities for new growth, different development for housing. I mean, this is, when you visit 4700, when you drive that, you'll see that the opportunities are just incredible. And we think that this really shifts focus, helps us plan perhaps even a new center point for Taylorsville.
Great. Thank you very much. Beth, do you have any questions?
I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to compliment to everyone involved. I know that this is it's been a long process and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears onto this. And I think that one of the great things about this is that you've incorporated that regional component. You do have West Valley and Murray City as partners, but in addition to that, this is an opportunity to really enhance that connectivity to the community college. And as Chair Christensen was saying, any transit-oriented development opportunities, whether it's housing or some other component, really complement everybody on this regional development type overview of this. So great job. Thank you.
Mary, one question on the funding plan. Obviously, no federal funds are guaranteed until you've been through their process, and we remain optimistic. If somehow they weren't approved, I guess at that point we would just have to look for other potential funding sources at that point.
That's what we have to do.
Okay.
We did do some briefings with FTA Region 8 already. Mary could speak to that, but it looks favorable for this project.
Right. We've run some of the numbers, and it does look like it would be competitive for small sites. So we want to move forward in that direction.
Okay, great. Well, we'll look forward over these next few months to getting that application ready and ready to go. So, at this point, this is just informational, correct? And then it'll
Correct.
come back after it goes to the local advisory council.
Right, we will bring it to the local advisory council. It's scheduled for the November 18th meeting, and then we'll bring it back to you for final review and approval with any input from them as well.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And again, thanks to our Taylorsville Mayor Overson and Senator Harper and John Taylor. Thanks for being patient and wading through our technical challenges, and certainly the rest of our meeting. So we appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
With that, we'll go to a discussion on what's smart for UTA Energy Plan, and we welcome Dan Locke, who works on these efforts on behalf of UTA. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm going to defer a little bit to introduce the What's Smart plan to Hal Johnson, and I'll speak to its specifics. Hal?
Good morning, everybody. This is a follow-up item we had presented at the UTA board a few months back on a larger partnership with Rocky Mountain Power. And so we've been working with Rocky Mountain Power on implementing the partnership that we discussed at the board. And this is one of the first steps towards that. So if you can do the next slide. So these were the kind of the areas we identified in the larger partnership agreement with Rocky Mountain Power, kind of energy efficiency, electric vehicles, electrical infrastructure, grid resilience, and grants and research. And so this WattSmart will touch on several of these areas that we identified in the agreement. So if you can do the next one. And then this was just a quick summary of the vision that we kind of noted. And I think, you know, kind of the WattSmart program and some of the things that Dan will touch on really, I think, help support the larger vision that we have as an agency. With that, I'll turn it over to Dan, and then I'll make a couple closing comments on it.
Next slide, please. In order to realize this vision, we developed some metrics. How we know we're progressing towards our goals for renewable energy, cleaner environment, and so forth. And we identified these 4 metrics. You'll see air pollutants avoided, greenhouse gas emissions avoided, building efficiency, as well as vehicle efficiency in our energy usage. Now, each one of these, you can see they're scaled from red up to green, where the amber in the middle is more of the average. In the cases of air pollutants avoided, greenhouse gases avoided, that average is based on guidance documents in APTA, as well as the vehicle efficiency that comes from the data, NTD data from FTA, and the building efficiency comes from EPA Energy Star. So our real goal is to project forward and to operate in the green, and to combine it into one score so that we can communicate easily across the agency to our employees, as well as the community learns more about what we're doing, a simple score that demonstrates our progression towards the use of renewable energy in a cleaner environment by operating in the green. Next slide. So how do these metrics interact with the focus area? And that's kind of what the chart on the right shows, is that by choosing the metrics that we did, it shows that we can track our progress in the areas of energy efficiency, electric vehicle acquisition, our electrical infrastructure for bus charging, maybe employee, as well as community vehicle charging, and grid resilience. Now, can you go to the next slide? I'm going to focus just on grid resilience a little bit, because this one's kind of in line with the Utah Climate and Clean Air Compact that UTA signed on to with other major leaders in the community. And as you can see, our goal that we put up there for the grid resiliency was to increase our clean energy, renewable energy sources by 25% by 2022, where in the compact it was by 2025. And so we identify some strategies. How are we going to get there? And so we identified working with Rocky Mountain Power, increasing our participation in the Blue Sky program, of which we are already participating in. Organize outreach, both not just to the community, but also to our employees about what we're doing over at the Intermodal Hub with the bus charging, the fast chargers. Also, the development of the charging algorithm. We are currently working with Utah State University in that area. Also, investigation in vehicles and electric grid and solar. How are we going to integrate more renewables into the system? Next slide. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the Blue Sky program, something at UTA that we've been participating in for the last 3 years in particular. One of them is called their Schedule 73 Solar Energy Block Charge Time of Use. Currently, we own or buy 736 blocks each year. This is over 1.7 million kilowatt hours of clean energy that UTA is using. As you can see, a large chunk of that is put on one of our traction power substations. And it displaces on-peak power, as you can see, can cost us as much as nearly 12 cents a kilowatt hour. And we're purchasing at 7 cents, and it's clean, renewable energy. Now, we've made a lot of progress just recently in the last few days. I kind of want to highlight that's not in this slide. We were looking at the efficient use of our 736 blocks, and we were saving about $21,000 annually. But reallocating those 736 blocks and focus on our traction power substations, we can increase that savings to $26,000 annually. And if we focus it in particular on the 2 traction power substations on the S line, and we reinvest about $3,000 of that savings, we can operate the S line on 100% renewable energy, moving us towards that goal, as you can see below, and our metric tracking our greenhouse gas avoidance. Next slide, please. Al?
Okay. Just to finish up, so kind of the next steps with Rocky Mountain Power Partnership, we're working with them on the design and construction of the depot district. We're planning for the deployment of 30 or so battery buses with the initial construction, but we're planning for up to 125 battery buses at the depot district. And we've got a procurement that's recently closed to purchase battery buses for the Volkswagen settlement funds that we've gotten, as well as for the Ogden BRT. And there's some additional options in there for more battery buses. And then I think, as Dan mentioned, we anticipate looking at additional applications for Blue Sky Solar that potentially could go in at the depot district. We're planning to do a project next year to improve lighting at Meadowbrook, and Rocky Mountain Power has some incentives available that we can take advantage of to help pay the costs for that. And then Kevin Anderson and his group continue to work on improving our controls and control systems of the buildings to reduce peak usage. And then lastly, on this slide, I'll just touch on, we've working on a project to provide vehicle and for passenger vehicle charging, employee charging at most of our facilities at UTA. So this would provide electrical charging infrastructure, which would hopefully help incentivize more employees to purchase electric cars. So we can do the last slide. So just in conclusion, kind of we've been actively working to implement the partnership we presented earlier. There's Dan and Patty Garver and that group have been working on a sustainability plan for the agency, so more will come soon. And we believe this kind of first effort with the WattSmart program is helps support the Utah roadmap for climate change and air quality that was UTA signed on to earlier in the year. So with that, I'll see if there's any questions.
I did have a couple questions. First of all, and we recently attended the Utah Energy and Economic Summit, and I was surprised, but not so surprised, that a lot of discussion about hydrogen, but it was more like in the Dominion gas range and ways of sort of reharnessing and helping to balance out peak power demand for renewables. And it's clearly in the formative stage. Does Rocky Mountain Power get into hydrogen at all, or is it more likely going to be in the gas field, Dominion arena?
Yeah, right now in conversations with Rocky Mountain Power, they're not actively working in the hydrogen space. I think you're correct. It would be more with working with Dominion in that arena. And you know, there's some good applications for hydrogen that are out there, as you touched on, for kind of backup power and peak shaving.
And then my second question is, you know, as we, and I think having this partnership with Rocky Mountain is certainly great. I'm reminded in my one basement apartment that's still on a fluorescent light that somehow I need to rip the thing out and convert it to LED. But it made me think about our light rail vehicles, especially the older ones that have what I'm guessing is more of a fluorescent lighting. Do we ever do any retrofitting on our vehicle since those lights are on all the time and running, you know, 12-hour days? And I just wondered whether that's part of our vehicle overhaul.
Yeah, I can't speak to that one. I don't know if Kyle is still on. He would be the best one to speak to that, or Eddie might know.
Do you happen to know, Eddie?
You know, that's something that I haven't been a part of those conversations, but definitely something that I can talk to Kyle about and the team over at Light Rail and get back to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things you'd kind of do as you transition stuff, but it seems like it's, you know, it would help in the lighting on some of those vehicles, but it's more on the efficiency side. It'd be worth taking a look at anyway.
Yeah, I'll take a look and get back to you with that information.
Sure. Beth, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question about as we're doing all of this. I think that the partnership is obviously really a critical element to that, because what I see as some of the things that we need to be addressing are not just our own infrastructure for charging stations, but also substations that go with that, so that we can manage our utilization of electricity in a more efficient way. Does this partnership, is that designed to address our future needs at the Depot District? And then in other locations, for instance, Ogden BRT is obviously one that's going to be getting electric buses. We know that those infrastructure or those charging stations are planned, but is there anything else outside of that planned?
Well, and Dan touched on it a little bit with, you know, we've been working with Rocky Mountain Power and Utah State really to look at how to best manage the load from the battery vehicles, especially with our high powered charging at over our central station. We've got a 1 megawatt feed from Rocky Mountain Power that feeds the high powered charger. So it's a huge load when we plug that in. And then if like the light rail takes off at the same time, they're all fed off the same circuit on the grid. So you've got two major things hitting at the same time. So Rocky and kind of Utah State, what they're working on is to develop a master control system to kind of better manage those loads, so that, you know, we can momentarily kick off the bus chargers while the light rail takes off and kind of fill in the gap. And so the other thing Rocky Mountain Power is really interested in with these battery vehicles connecting to the grid is that it has potential to help them manage their load, because at certain times of the year, we'll have times where renewables are overproducing energy. And, you know, if there's not a big heating or AC load on the grid, then we've got a opportunities to put very low cost energy into battery vehicles. So Rocky Mountain Power is definitely interested in kind of looking at how to take advantage of these mobile batteries and how to best kind of use them to balance some of their grid load.
That's helpful. I had another question, mostly about the emergency side of things. As we all remember, as if COVID wasn't enough, we also had that earthquake earlier this year, and the challenge was that our system, certainly our track system, was down because Rocky Mountain Power had down power lines. Do we have anything that can do a backup to that magnitude, or is that even in the discussion at this point?
Eddie probably maybe a little bit better addressed, but we don't have anything in play right now on that. We've had some conversations, but nothing in kind of anything definitive right now.
Yeah, we don't have anything that could take over the entire system like that when the system was, when the electrical power was down, throughout the downtown area. But we are looking at, possibilities of having like a mobile unit. So anytime that we had just like a single substation down, we could take a mobile unit out to plug in to keep service running if we needed to do repairs or had an incident. But right now we don't have anything that could take over, that massive amount of power in the downtown area that we saw with the earthquake.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. I don't have any further questions right now. I'm excited about this. I think that Chair Christensen talked about hydrogen, and that was a discussion element, and there's some, inner discussions, but I think I've seen a lot of infrastructure that Rocky Mountain Power is doing. And it does seem like the electric side of things does seem to have more of an infrastructure already in place. And I think that is helpful, but that we get to have some of that value and then add to it moving forward. So thank you.
Thanks. Hal or Dan, anything else?
No, I would just maybe thank the board for their time, and I just want to recognize Dan. He's done a great job and kind of working with Rocky Mountain Power on implementing the partnership that we've been doing.
Great. Well, thanks to both of you, and we look forward to some other items as they present themselves, and certainly want to be supportive of that where possible. So, with that, it brings us to our other business, which is our next meeting on November the 11th at 9:00 a.m. And unless there's anything else that I'm missing, we'll turn to adjournment. Beth?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thanks to our staff. Thanks, Eric, for quick thinking and getting our sound back up and going again, and saving our meeting today. And thanks to those who might be watching and for your patience. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.